We're going to have a rich conversation today on the subject of separating male orgasm from ejaculation, a loaded title, a profound title. And I really look forward to having a conversation with you about this and the vast knowledge base you have on the subject. So let's begin.
It's my pleasure to welcome you to my home and talk on the subject of becoming superhuman through the mastery of sexual energy and becoming a sexual warrior, basically.
The male prostate, for me, is a key element in terms of semen retention and male masculine vitality, because really the male prostate is the master key of a man. Now, when I teach sometimes young people, especially boy teens, I have a lecture where I ask them one question: where is your prostate? Generally, it's not known, and I didn't know up until my later years. So I think that might be a good place to start. Where is the male prostate located? And the answer is, it's located and embedded in the center point of the waistline, and it's the size of a walnut. However, if not maintained, it can grow to the size of a tennis ball, which is concerning. So anything else to expand upon that?
Yeah, so what I will say is that, as we know from the work that we do related to trauma, that a lot of the emotions can land in the prostate and cause this congestion, and it can be an enlargement, you can get crystals in there, but ultimately it causes a dysfunction. So that you might feel this constant need to ejaculate, but it's not. The pump isn't working properly. So prostate health is really, really important. And I know that this is not what we're talking about today, but the female Skene's glands, which are located just below the bladder, but if you looked at it on a diagram, they're virtually in exactly the same place. And it is where the females also gather a lot of their emotion and trauma as well in the body. So we're not that different.
Yes, most definitely. Why do men have a prostate? Key question. Well, the answer to that is it's what enables men to reproduce, first of all. It's also a biological factory that produces fluid that nourishes and moves the flow of sperm to reproduce. The male prostate also propels semen through the utero in order to ejaculate sperm to reproduce. But there is also a spiritual aspect to the prostate, which is it has the capacity to ignite spiritual faculties, which is not often spoken of. And that faculty is ignited through the lower chakras, which I know you know a lot about in terms of the spectrum.
Taking the energy up through the body, and we call it INJACULATION. And this is how we can separate the ejaculation from the orgasm. So the sexual energy is actually converted at the navel into chi energy, and then that can be taken right up through the body. So you can experience an orgasm in any part of the body. So it can be a heart orgasm, it could be a mouth, a third eye, it could even be in your finger, it can be anywhere in the body. These incredible feelings of bliss once they learn to harness the sexual energy and learn some very specific Taoist ancient techniques. That firstly they start off with, I give tips and tricks. Basically, it's a little bit like a shortcut and how to achieve this, but then much later on, when they're much better practice, they can actually just direct that energy with their consciousness. And it is all about, instead of this massive life force energy that we create through the production of the sperm, instead of expelling it out of the body, we're harnessing that energy and actually taking it up through the body. There's a reason why footballers are told to refrain from sexual activity before games, and I know that it's been spoken about that Mike Tyson used sperm retention as a means to helping him be, a great fighter, and some of the ancient warriors too. This was their secret. So yeah, it's an incredible practice.
Yeah, best kept secret. So yes, definitely athletes harness that energy in order to create vitality and potency. In the context of semen retention, ejaculation, sperm retention is sometimes called the power lock or the big draw. And it's a lost art, I would say, in the 21st century. And we know that it was an ancient practice given as a gift to royalty in different cultures and noblemen and priests. And somehow all of this information has been lost. So hopefully in this conversation we can kind of bring back that ancient knowledge and bring it into a modern context.
Yeah, so I do find that one of the most common problems is that we get people coming who've got porn addiction and they're masturbating a lot, they're ejaculating a lot, they're quite depressed often because they're losing the life force energy hand over fist, and then they're losing that ability to, in a real life situation with a partner, they're not actually, the brain has formed these other neural pathways and the brain's not reacting, in conjunction with the body in the way that it should, and then there's a massive, problem because nothing's working properly.
Yeah, we know we're in a chronic stage right now in terms of erectile dysfunction, the advent of Viagra, impotency. For me, the keyword of impotency is weakened potency, and we all know in terms of a masculine frame, we will strive to be the strongest and the best we can be, with a feminine balance, of course. But we're in chronic stages in terms of the pharmaceutical industry and how they are supporting impotency with drugs. And we know that there are practices where drugs are not needed in order for a man to be to his maximum vitality. So yeah, in terms of, for example, masturbation, such taboo words, but it has to be spoken of. Yeah. Premature ejaculation is another one that I hear a lot of concerns with. There are means to make yourself strong internally, but it also means holding a level of discipline. There's a keyword that's trending at the moment. It's called nofap amongst younger people, and it's their version, I guess, of dealing with this situation. Nofap meaning you can Google it what it actually means, but it is
shocked when you told me about like the youngsters are using Viagra, like teenagers. I was really shocked about that.
Yes.
That's a real problem.
Through lack of knowledge, I would say. So we can have a conversation about solutions in terms of the male prostate and how we manage these challenges we have in modern times. But I just wanted to expand upon the spiritual aspect of the prostate before we move on, because it's so important. Because the prostate, by many grandmaster teachers of Tantra, they deem the prostate as the Kundalini gland of the male and the male's master key to his own potency. There's a grandmaster called Sunyata Saraswati. I hope I haven't butchered that name.
No.
He passed away a few years ago, but he was a grandmaster in the sacred and ancient arts of Tantra. A very good book. In fact, it's not on my book pile, but the book is called Jewel in the Lotus. Highly recommended reading in terms of heightening male vitality. Historically, the prostate word, and what does it mean? It's a word from Greek origin, which means protector, guardian, and one who stands before. So that's the key meaning of the Greek interpretation of what the prostate means. And really, I just want to say the prostate historically is the master principle of the male system. So it's something to be very much aware of, and it's something to learn and be knowledgeable of.
So let's talk about, sometimes, you know, we know that we gather a lot of our trauma in the pelvic basin, right? So we're conditioned in many cases to feel guilt and shame about pleasure, sex, intimacy, all those kinds of things. So you know, guys can feel, you know, there's pressure to perform. They, you know, if they can't achieve that, you know, because maybe they've lost the ability to gain an erection, they're going to become really despondent and depressed. It also weakens their masculinity because their life force energy is just being depleted. If you're constantly, you know, getting rid of your life force energy, you're going to be really tired, really depleted. Your brain's not going to function as well. So in terms of creativity is going to be down, energy is going to be down, everything is going to be much, much lower. It can also obviously make the guys feel really inadequate, and you know, if they've got unresolved father issues or something like that, this could all be playing into this whole scenario. And this is, you know, these are things in our life that we need to dive into and heal in order for us to really truly step into our power. You know, we talk a lot in the feminine side of, you know, stepping into your Shakti, your feminine energy, but equally, you know, this work really helps men step into their masculinity and their power.
Shiva.
Absolutely. And when you start retaining sperm, you know, your energy is like, you're like this big honeypot of, you know, women just want to know you because you've got this powerful masculine energy about you.
Magnetic energy.
Also, there's, you know, if you want to get a project done or something, especially if you're a couple, if you say, obviously explain to your partner that you're going to retain sperm for a week or so because you've got a project that you need to push through because you need your creative mind. You know, this is just another way that you can use this sexual energy, like, in so many areas of your life. It's not just about being a sexual powerhouse, it's about being a powerhouse in every area of your life. You know, mastering, you know, depression, mastering your physicality, your relationship, you know, your work with everything.
Most definitely. The healing aspect of the male prostate and how it affects our being, as you said, you know, it can affect the self-esteem of the male, etc., and affect their potency in terms of going out and conquering the world, so to speak. But there is an emotional illness that occurs in terms of impotence, and it is addressed by one of my favorite authors, Louise L. Hay, who recently passed away, in her keynote book called You Can Heal Your Life. And what she expands upon it in her works is that every illness has an emotional connection. So in terms of the male and the prostate and the reproductive organs, the emotional illness, for example, of impotence is holding tension. Also social beliefs, guilt and shame around sexuality. Also, quite a major one is holding spite against an ex-partner or women, and, you know, holding that in and then it becoming an illness instead of healing that. And also weakened masculinity, which can be affected in many forms, from childhood abuse to adult abuse, I guess, or, you know, toxic relationships, quote unquote, buzzword at the moment. So there are many things that actually can be toxic to the prostate and the male reproductive organ, but there are also things that can heal, such as affirmation. And I'm such a fan of Louise Hayes and how she takes the responsibility of healing it into one's own self. So some affirmations that I've used throughout time and I'd like to share, for example, in terms of the prostate, in her book, she has a few key mantras that men can use. In terms of men, masculinity, protecting your prostate health, some of the affirmations Louise Hayes comes up with, one is, I accept and rejoice in my masculinity. I accept and rejoice in my masculinity. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%.
Such a beautiful mantra.
This is, you know, this is such a big thing going on globally at the moment, that because of the system that we live in, men have been emasculated, not just through the kind of jobs that they do, they're not hunter-gatherers anymore, but the fact that the women have been really encouraged to be alpha and be in their masculine survival mode. So the polarity in the relationships has been really, really skewed, which has demasculinized men, demoralized men, because they don't know their place. So if you've got a partner who is, you know, the female is the main earner, she's very self-sufficient, she's lived her life in survival mode, where's his role? You know, where does that leave him, you know, and how does that leave the man feeling?
Yeah, all the roles in the 21st century have been all jumbled up. But I know David Dada speaks quite eloquently about that being a positive process, and we're in the stage of kind of where things are being reevaluated and brought into a modern context. So I'm optimistic that all these issues that are going on in terms of masculine and feminine polarity are coming to a state of balance and harmony, you know. So another affirmation from Louise Hayes, I like this one. I seek positive ways to contribute my masculinity to the world.
Okay, so for me, I've been on a massive journey personally, and coming out of a marriage where I was forced to be in the masculine. I didn't want to be, I resented it, and it actually made me incredibly sick. It took me a long time to come out of that too, because that's the mode that my mother was in as well, and is still in, unfortunately. But I really embrace the masculine now, and I embrace my femininity and my softer side. That, to me, that's such a load off of my shoulders. You know, I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and it was such a huge and overwhelming responsibility. And nowadays I'm really happy to really surrender into my feminine energy and let a guy lead. You know, I don't want to lead. I used to want to lead before, I don't want to lead anymore. And it's my relationships have been so different, and I've experienced so many beautiful things that, you know, I never thought possible. Yeah.
And it's one of the quotes in my book, and the quote is by a great scholar that I sat at the feet of. He said, boys are born, men are made. And unfortunately, through my works, what I've come to realize is, and in myself also, that men are actually not taught how to be men in a modern context. There was a time when, you know, hunter-gatherers or working in the fields, boys would be chaperoned by uncles, father, family, friends. He would have a whole collage of men to teach him how to be a man. But unfortunately, we have to figure, well, me personally, I can speak for myself, I had to figure it out. You know, I had to figure it out the hard way. And hopefully with the knowledge we have out there, younger people will find it much easier, you know. And a key element of that is there is no manual for relationships. There's loads of books out there, but practical experience you got to figure out for yourself. So another one of Louise Hayes' mantras for men is, I let go and bless away my past relationships. I forgive me and I forgive you. So powerful.
Really powerful.
Yeah. So powerful.
There's something I have to add to that about forgiveness, and it was something that I always found very difficult. But this changed my life and my whole view on forgiveness. It's that we don't forgive other people to let them off the hook and excuse their behaviour. We forgive them to set ourselves free and to heal ourselves. And there's such a great power in that. And then over time, you do actually genuinely forgive the other person because you let go of that contraction, and you actually, you forgive yourself as well for doing that to yourself, for staying in that toxic relationship, or even your part that you played in it. You know, I think we've got to take responsibility for our part as well.
Yeah. And well, I have an answer to this question, but I wanted to ask you in terms of, what if the other person in the situation refuses to accept forgiveness?
I can still forgive them within myself. That's fine.
Exactly.
I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for me.
For me, it's self-centered, unfortunately.
This is for my own healing, for my own soul, for my own spiritual evolution, to set myself free, because I think anger and resentment, at the end of the day, the biggest person who suffers is the person who's holding it, and it's my body that it's affecting, it's my health that it's affecting. So I love myself enough that I don't want that for myself.
Yeah. And I've done many rituals in terms of forgiving myself and forgiving the other person for my own karma and for my own well-being. You know, so important. The mistakes I've made throughout my life and the things I feel that I've done to me that I've held within myself, just releasing it for my own healing, and in doing so, hopefully for the healing of the person that was also in the situation, you know. So it goes both ways.
I think also you're not carrying that energy around with you, which ultimately affects everybody. You know, we attract what we are, and if we're projecting this energy of anger and unforgiving energy out, that's exactly what we're going to get back, because they're an energetic and vibrational match. So why would we want to attract that or more of the same things to ourselves? You know, I think as long as we learn the lessons from the pain that we've taken on and the trauma that we've taken on, and we stop repeating those cycles over and over again, recreating more trauma, then, you know, it's a good thing that we recognise that within ourselves, and that we have enough self-love and enough integrity that we don't want to keep re-traumatizing ourselves, and in turn re-traumatizing other people. So, you know, I think we've got a responsibility to let that stuff go. So we're going to get into the tantric sexology part of the video, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my client experience, because obviously I work with men, and there are some men that prefer to work with a man, and then there's other guys that prefer to work with a woman. So a typical experience I would have in a consultation is somebody will come to me, their confidence is at an all-time low. They might have lost a relationship because they have either premature ejaculation, or they're not able to reach erection, or they can reach erection and they can't maintain it. So the practices that I would take them through, I will be teaching them firstly to breathe properly. This is a massive thing. Major. So what happens often is, especially when people masturbate a lot, is they mouth breathe very, very shallow, and it's this frantic breathing that goes on with this kind of frantic thrashing at the same time. And what's happening is the oxygen's not being released off the red blood cells. The Bohr effect, which is the mechanism by which where your body says, okay, there's enough carbon dioxide in the body now, I can release the oxygen off the red blood cells because I'm not in danger. So this sort of real mouth breathing, this panting kind of breathing, what it does, your body doesn't know that you're not a caveman, and it doesn't know that you're not in danger. So it would want to finish what you're doing as quickly as possible. So if that was masturbation, you're going to ejaculate really, really quickly, because the body says, hey, we need to get this over and done with, because there might be a bear at the door or something like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to teach them to breathe properly. Then I'm going to teach them to have a much better connection with their lingam, which is the Sanskrit word for penis. And this is about bringing their attention out of their head and into their body, and starting to have a different relationship with the lingam. Instead of just mindlessly and without proper sensation just thrashing away, that they are actually going to bring all of their attention there. So even during the practice, they might kind of lose track, because they just go into these old patterns, and, you know, and they're tightening their jaw and they're panting, and then they go into this very fast masturbation practice. So I will be bringing them back to the body, the breath, and they're bringing all of their consciousness down to that area. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be teaching them how, to take that energy up through their body instead of expelling it out of the body. Yeah. Once they've mastered that, I'm going to be teaching them, it's a muscle, right? Yeah. So we need to strengthen this muscle. So there's another practice that I will teach them to actually strengthen the muscle. So a lot of guys, especially people who've got desk jobs, they're just not out in, hunter gathering, being like outsidey kind of guys, and they lose a lot of their strength. So it is really important too to be mindful of, if your muscles are weakened around the pelvic area, that's really important to start strengthening those back up. If you build muscle, you build testosterone, and there's so many things that link in and become synergistic to the whole process, which will lead us onto the microcosmic orbit, which I will teach them how to take the energy up through the body, and then circulate this energy in the body. So we're drawing in this life force, or this earth Gaia energy, in through the perineum, bringing it all the way up the spine, circulating it at the top of the head and down the front of the body. You can actually do it in the opposite way. You can try doing it in the opposite, in the feminine. This is called the feminine mode, and up the back and over the front it is called the masculine mode. So you can go between, once you become a master, you can go between the two and then just play with those energies. So perineum, which is located between the between the scrotums and the anus, is where you're going to be drawing this energy up from, through a channel called the Sushumna, which is like a tube-like structure that runs up the spine. You're going to be activating this microcosmic orbit, and it's something incredible that is far superior to in ejaculation. I mean, we have a joke in some of our circles that why would you want a happy ending when you can have a happier ending, or you can just be happy all day?
Exactly. Or friction sex.
Two bodies
as opposed
together.
To a multi-orgasmic experience. Or a happy ending in comparison to an intimate connection that could last as long as you wish, all night with your beloved. So there are levels, and I guess stage one, which you teach very eloquently to men, is to really master the self and master the breathing. That
first stage.
Hold your breath. Hold it some more. The breathing. As we know, humans, when they're in a state of excitement or fear, it's rapid breathing, and the opposite of that is controlled breathing, which is the key aspect of tantric sexology and how we master our internal self in the teachings of Tantric Journey. And shall we have a conversation about that and expand upon it?
For sure, yeah. So when I'm teaching this process, so with my really good students who really just embody this, and they just they run with it, I will later introduce, like sometimes they want to change positions and they might not just want to lay down, and they start to get a little bit creative. In those cases, sometimes I'm doing this via Zoom, but energy is energy, right? It travels. I can be face to face or I can be via Zoom. It doesn't make any difference. And we'll start to create heart connections. So I'm going to be receiving their energy in through my sacral chakra, and I'm giving out through the heart. They're receiving in through the heart, and they're giving out through their sacral chakra. So we're now creating this, we're linking our microcosmic orbit, and I'm actually feeling that sexual energy at the same time. So my body will even start to move and wave because I'm feeling that sexual energy circulating, and then I would, especially if there's somebody who likes to sit up, then I will maintain eye connection with them and we'll breathe together. It's honestly like making energetic love.
Energetic love.
When there's no touching, there's no self-pleasuring on my part, but I'm just feeling this incredible energy going through my body, and I'm giving, I'm giving and receiving, and they're doing the same. And often they will be left like they're just in this blissful, they just want to bathe in this blissful energy. And we'll end the session, and then quite often they just want to just stay there, and it is such a far cry from frantic masturbating to porn, that they're left in this incredible blissful state instead of this frantic, depressed, anxious state. So it is the complete opposite. It's beautiful.
And I think let's go there. Let's explore the taboos. Pornography, big problem. Why? The advent of social media, the internet, smartphones. Unfortunately, our kids in school have access to these things, and then they are socialized and taught incorrectly how to connect intimately. Now, you and I know as the porn industry was born in the 1960s in America with the advent of the video cassette. Before then, it was kind of like erotica, kind of light, sensual imagery. You see it in postcards from the 1930s, 40s, etc. But all of a sudden in the 1960s, it became something else. It became something, a simulation, a representation, or even you can kind of connect it to animation, because it's not real. It's a suggestion of how we should be intimate, but it's the absolute opposite. And unfortunately, general society, we could say, are socialized into that is how we connect with another human being, and it is absolutely the opposite. So I'm just a strong advocate of giving information that will just change that around. 100%.
So you imagine, your kids get this weird sex education video at school that might be animated with
diagrams,
and then they leave it going, what the hell? And then the next sex education they have is porn,
smartphone,
and then they think that is what sex is, that's what lovemaking is, and most porn is far from making love. It's actually about just really demoralizing women in a horrible way, and in almost like in a punishing way. And it's not the way to make a woman feel safe. It's not the way to make a woman open up. All you're going to do is actually traumatize her. So we have this. I've heard people say, you need hard sex to have pleasure, but that's wrong. The only reason that women need hard sex is because their bodies are numb, because they've got so much trauma in their bodies. So by this whole notion of Tantra and healing our traumas, the body wakes up. We come out of a place of numbness and back to a place of feeling, and then everything is very slow, very connected, very energetic, and very multi-orgasmic.
So from a tantric tale perspective, it's really the martial arts of making love. Now we know in ancient India and ancient China, these martial arts were taught as a standard. It stated that sexual love between man and woman is sacred, and it's natural, and it's a healthy human need. Unfortunately, we are socialized to think that the intimate connection, or let's say sex, between a male and a female is shameful and embarrassing. I could go on with descriptives. But basically, the pleasure of ejaculation for a man is superficial in comparison to the profound ecstasy that can be generated from lovemaking using tantric and Teo methods of semen retention, the big draw, ejaculation, sperm retention, the power lock. We could go on.
So let's talk about also, we have a culture of people having multiple partners, a lot of free love, and then there's a massive energetic impact. So for every person, that you have sex with, it's real. You are having sex with the energy of all of the other people they've had sex with. Energy is infinite, and that stuff circulates. And I've experienced this myself, and I've been meditating and feeling instant. I'm like, these are not my emotions. Yeah. And then I was actually in a relationship with somebody who I was under the impression he was separated, and it was actually how I caught him out. Or not caught him out, but I questioned him because he was co-parenting, cohabiting with his ex. And it wasn't until I was meditating and feeling all of these emotions and feelings, and I knew they weren't mine. And when I described them to him, they were his wife's. And I said, "Are you still you still share my bed with her?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you still have sex with her?" He was like, "Well, about once a month. I've got to keep the household, calm and happy." And I said, "You've passed all of your worst trauma onto me, and I've now had to process that and try and transmute that out of my body because you're carrying her energy. And at the same time, is it any wonder that you're getting into your kids and your wife are exploding when you go home because you're taking my energy into that container, into that home."
Yes, definitely. And that ties into, I guess, the karma of unhealed relationships in the past and the accumulation that can accumulate in your spirit and your being, and having the tools to really release that and free yourself and free your partners or those you were involved with. So important in terms of keeping ourselves cleared and cleaned in our well-being.
So that comes full circle back to that whole notion of forgiveness and why. So that's a whole big fat reason why we should forgive in order for ourselves to heal, so that we don't pass that stuff on to other people. It is possible to clear that stuff out of your body, but very few people know how to do it.
I would say that's a whole session in itself.
It is. It certainly is.
Anyway, back to male vitality and tantric Teo sexology. I wanted to expand upon something that I think is quite amazing, and the statistics. In the sexual act, let's call it, a man in one ejaculation releases 300 million sperms. That's a lot. It's the equivalent of filling 3,000 football stadiums. For all you football fans out there, picture in your mind, not once, imagine the World Cup. Alright, World Cup. You know how many people are in the World Cup? Imagine 3,000 stadiums. That is how much is released in one ejaculation. And that is a man's whole life force. Why do men go to sleep? Quite often, not all the time, after ejaculation. My analogy of that is, say your laptop, Control, Alt, Delete. What does that do? Shut down, then restart. So I wanted to explore, put it in a practical sense of understanding what happens when I'm in a single male ejaculation. So when a man ejaculates, he loses 1 teaspoonful of semen. So according to scientific research, the nutritional value of the amount of semen lost is equal to 2 pieces of New York steak. You know those fat steaks, especially, New York does everything big. 2 pieces of whole New York steak, nutritionally. 6 oranges, 2 lemons, 10 eggs. And we know how much protein eggs has. And this includes vitamins, proteins, amino acids, everything in one single release. So, you know, in that context, it maybe brings into kind of some summary how important it is to really cultivate and preserve the vitality that the man has within, because a lot is lost. The book, The Tale of Sexology, it states that up to a pint, 1 teaspoon of semen is the equivalent to almost 1 pint of blood. Now we know what a beer pint, we know what a pint looks like. 1 pint of blood. So it's a concentrated, maybe like Ribena or some cordial. It's a concentrated amount, but that's a huge amount of our internal self to give away without intention.
Yeah, a pint of blood can be the difference between life and death, right?
Life and death.
So, yeah, hugely important. So this life force energy, it's I mean, I come back to it so many times that, you know, why would you want to waste that life force energy? And, you know, we say, like, if you take your age and divide it by 5, that's the amount of days to go in between each ejaculation. So, you know, say if you're 20 years old, then you're a youngster, so every 4 days is going to be fine, because there's that renewal. But then there are other Taoist practices and tantric practices where people don't ejaculate at all, you know, and then they get to this stage, it's completely becomes a natural birth control, because that obviously that whole sperm factory is going to come to a little bit of a grinding halt if you stop using it altogether. So I think if people want to go ahead and have families, then, you know, then there's a happy medium to be had.
Definitely. And I want to add to that, in ancient times it is said that the man was the one who managed birth control. In the modern context, the responsibility is given to the woman in terms of the pill, etc. You know, all the things we have out there. But from our knowledge and research, in ancient times, through semen retention and controlling oneself and internal regulation, one being intimate, the man was responsible for birth control. So I thought that was a very interesting piece of information, because in modern times, it's flipped the opposite.
That would be an incredible addition for many women, because not only would they be having incredible sex with their partners, beautiful, energetic sex, but, you know, they also would have, you know, not all of that worry and responsibility. So their husbands would be incredible lovers and in charge of the birth control. So that would be amazing. That would be a massive turnaround. Okay, so we're going to get into the conversation around Lingam reflexology and how the different areas of the Lingam relate to different parts of the body. So, you know, when you go to a spa and you have reflexology on your feet, well, the Lingam is exactly the same. It all correlates to different organs in the body, different parts of the Lingam, and that's why we talk about the having a different relationship with the Lingam, and, you know, rather than this frantic old pattern, because you can actually heal the body. And in the opposite, the female yoni, if you place the yoni on top of the Lingam, if you look at the diagram, which you're going to see in this video, it's got exactly the same organs in exactly the same place. So it's like putting a glove over the top, and they fit exactly. And when you get into the Taoist art of healing through intimacy in sex, this is why, because these organs are linked. And actually the tip of the Lingam and the cervix, when they touch, actually link, they join your heart. And that's how you know, partly how you get your heart connection, because those two have a direct link to your heart. So, and that's also why in tantric lovemaking, this slow held positions can transmute so much energy and give so much connectivity, you know, in that lovemaking process.
Yeah, I mean, let's go full out taboo. Male masturbation, or nofap. Nofap. Google it. Nofap. But yeah, masturbation. You know, the secret and the guilt and the shame connected to that, and the loss of potency connected to that also. There are alternate ways to strengthen the male system using systems just as Lingam, reflexology. Now, I know there are certain aids out there. I've researched. There's a few aids that are used post prostate surgery for the man. That is an aid that can be used to actually strengthen your male reproductive system and genitals. A lot of these aids look like kind of sex type objects, but they're actually the opposite, and they're used to strengthen the muscles and the blood circulation around the lingam or the penis. So we'll put some links into those aids. I guess we'll summarize by saying that it's key to have an understanding of the difference between love and sex, the difference between pornography and intimate connection, and the difference between the sacred art of Tantra and what we are socialized to believe is intimate connection. So I guess that's the intention of why we're here and why we're speaking about this, and hopefully some of this information will guide you to do your own research into the way to make yourself potent, strong and vital.
It's life-changing. So if you've got a partner, if you're a female and you have a partner who is really interested in this practice, it's not just incredible for him, it's incredible for you. Okay. When I left my marriage, I was dead from the neck down. I would make any excuse not to have sex, because that's what we did. We didn't make love, we had sex. And I didn't believe that what I experienced now was even possible. I've gone from being a robotic, numb, person who never wanted to be touched by a man again, never wanted sex again, to being a multi-orgasmic goddess. And I never, if somebody would have said to me 5 years ago that you will be this person, you'll be talking about these taboo subjects, I would have said you're insane, you need locking up, because that's not me. So, it just goes to show that you can really change your life and experience the most incredible things that this life has to offer. We are so much more than we're told, so much more than we're taught. As beings, we're beings of light and love, and I know that sounds woo-woo and hippie, but it's true. I was very, very in my masculine, in survival mode, very successful too, but I was very unhappy, and I just knew that there was more to life. It's that even just how I got into this is a story all on its own.
That's a whole different podcast. Yeah. Okay, I think, can we share where you can get in contact with us? Hopefully at least one person is inspired to reach out to us and see what we do and the expanded work we do in this field. So how do we get hold of you?
So for me, I have a website. It's somasutra.co.uk. SOMASUTRA, a bit like Kama Sutra, only Soma. That name actually came to me in a meditation. Soma is the body, and Sutra is a teaching. All my socials are, it's at Su Kundalini, SU Kundalini, KUNDALINI. How about you, Kansu?
Me, you can get all of me. They call me Professor Kansu. Now, I just said, it's not self-titled, okay? When I was in New York, the community out in New York that I hang out with, they started calling me that because they saw one of my lectures and they were saying like, Professor Kansu, they started calling me Professor Kansu. So my name is Professor Kansu, not self-titled. And you'll find me on all social media as that PROFKHONSU. And also, if you're interested in this and other subjects, infomercial, you can check out my book, Sacred Man, From Boyhood to Manhood to Divine Masculine is called. And it really is an exploration of my life and the things I have learned and the things I wish to pass on to predominantly the young people I work with, teenagers mostly. But also, this book is actually bought more so by women and mothers to give an insight into the world of the male's mind. So it's really written for young men and fathers and mothers, mothers of sons, men, and the women who love them. So that's my infomercial over. And,
so what else do you like to read?
What else do I like to read? Well, let's have a bit of fun. Shall we end with some of our reading lists, which we have in front of us?
Yeah, for sure.
It might be useful to you out there, some of our favourite books that we want to share with you.
So actually, a lot of mine are packed away, but I have some to hand because they are my Bible. So I have Sexual Reflexology. This is the most incredible book. It is my Bible. I know you have this too. It's actually so many of the teachings that I use are in this book, and I have people all the time say I can't afford to have a session. I'm like, go buy the book. Read up. So this is by Mantak Chia, and it's co-written with William Uwe. The Multi-Orgasmic Couple, another Mantak Chia book. Everything I read is like, I've got other books as well, but Mantak Chia is like, he's the man, honestly. And this self-chi massage book is incredible.
That one I want to check out.
Yeah, check this one out for sure. So I took this to Bali with me, and I went through a lot of rainwater there, and I did a lot of sitting and reading, and it's very, very activating in your body. I was sitting, my anus was vibrating for a week after I got back.
Okay.
I was like, is this ever going to stop? Because there's so much energy, it just activated so much energy. So yeah, it was an extraordinary sensation.
Okay. And to your beautiful home, I've bought a stack. But can you help me, please? Can you do some? Maybe we'll just flash them. You can do your available on Amazon. Okay, so did you mention sexual reflexology?
Yeah.
Very good.
And the Multi-Orgasmic Couple. So look, there's so many crossovers here.
Okay. Sacred Sexuality. This one's a good one. It goes into ancient Egypt and the principles of sacred sexuality from the Kemetic principles.
Emotional Detox by Mal Wiraratne.
Master teacher.
So healing, it's basically healing women through emotional detox. Tell us secrets of cultivating male
This is my top 5
energy.
Top 5 favorite books. Mantak Chia, Grand Master. Love his works and his lectures, YouTube lectures.
All of his stuff. I'm always studying Mantak Chia's work.
Yeah. We have Sexual Secrets. I won't go into the details of it, but highly recommended. And this one is quite rare. I haven't found it anywhere online, but you may be lucky enough to know it. The Tale of Love and Sex. Very good. Simple book, loaded with information, practical information. The things you spoke about actually teaches you how to do it. You can borrow it. And finally, another one of my top 5, The Tale of Sexology, sharing the ancient principles of Tantra, Tale of Sexology. So yeah, hopefully some of those will be useful.
Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed our information sharing, and we wish you all the best in your path, in your studies, and you know where to get hold of us if you'd like more information. And I run workshops, I do one-to-one sessions. My life is this teaching, so this is
check Suzanne out. She's a heavyweight. She's been very humble. She's a heavyweight. Check out our social media, TikTok, Instagram, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So yeah, I recommend. All right. Anyway, with my sacred crystal, I say peace and thank you for having us.
Namaste.
Namaste.